Hello and welcome to Nolan Financial Radio. My name is Chris McKinney from Nolan Financial Partners. If you'd like more information about what you hear during our show today, give us a call at 719-210-4242 or visit us online at nolanfinancialpartners.com. And while at our website, click on the radio page, check out our past shows, and subscribe to our program on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. According to an article from Kiplinger, there's a 10-year checklist for retirement planning. So by 2030, 1 out of every 5 Americans will be retired. So by that day, every baby boomer will be older than 65, and the front edge of Gen X will be hitting the retirement age. I'm Gen X. A lot of people are Gen X. If
Yeah,
you're in
I'm
your
Gen X.
50s right now, retirement is barreling straight at you like a fully loaded freight train. While you're still at an age, while you're working, raising kids, saving, investing, it can be challenging to prioritize retirement savings. And if you haven't been diligent about adequately preparing your finances for retirement, this period of life can be really overwhelming, right? So, thankfully, this article talks about some tips. We're going to go over those. I'm really excited to share these with you today because it can help provide a framework for, hey, here's how things I can do so I can get started toward a path toward retirement and start to feel that a little bit, right? But before we start talking about that, I'm going to introduce you to my Gen Zer co-host, or excuse me, Gen Xer
Gen
co-host,
X.
Tony Shore, who's rocking knowledge across all generations. So,
Yeah, my yeah. We were just talking music before the show, and you were like, "I
oh
can
yeah,
never stump you." And my kids are always like, "We
I
want to
can't
take
stump
you
you.
to bar trivia to for all the '80s and music trivia."
Oh yeah,
That is my one claim to fame. I do know a lot about music, but there's certain genres I don't know anything about. But you know what I mean. But from
sure.
the Beach Boys and the Beatles all the way to the Outlaws and Pink Floyd, Rush, yes, in the 70s and Boston, and then in the 80s, Devo and the Cars. I've tried to have a diverse, I don't quite extend as far as Taylor Swift, but
No,
to all our Swifties out there.
I can tell you that Taylor Swift is on my wife's bucket list. So Tara Nolan wants to
Oh,
go see Taylor Swift.
oh, gee. Yeah.
So we're
I
gonna have to
don't,
figure that out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Good luck.
We may have to go to Europe to see her.
Yeah, I'm not a Swiftie, but
No,
but you know what? I'm looking forward to this talk today, Chris, because
yeah,
obviously you need to be ready for retirement.
yeah.
And as we age, those last 10 years, especially, we're going to go over things in each of those 10 years. So, where do you want to begin?
So I wanted to start about 10 years out from retirement.
Sure.
So if you're 10 years away from retirement, you're probably older than 50. So that means you can contribute more to your tax advantage retirement plans. So this year, for a 401k contribution, the limit is $30,500 in a 401k. Now, if you have a personal IRA or a personal Roth, that limit is $8,000 that you can put into a
Wow.
personal Roth. So that's a pretty nice, hefty amount. You can get almost 40,000 into deferred tax advantage retirement plans, right? Or tax-free retirement plans. So, and then there's if your company does matching, you at least make sure you're getting up to that matching. So, say the company does 6% matching on your salary, make sure you get that. That's one of the most important things you can do because a dollar saved is a dollar that you have for later. And so, a matching is basically for every dollar they match, that's 100% return on your dollar invested. So get
Wow.
that matching, right?
Right.
Um, Now, look, so you may be a decade away from retirement, but so you want to start about what does retirement look like? Where do you want to live? Do you want to stay where you're at? What are you going to do with yourself? What kind of activities are you going to get involved with that you haven't before? Or what things are you going to ramp up? Some people, they're they're weekend golfers, but now they're going to be weekday golfers. How's that going to change your spending plans, right? So these are questions we got to start to think about 10 years out on how we're going to divide up that retirement cake so that everybody has a plan.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody needs a plan and everybody needs to work with a financial professional who's, you're removed from it emotionally. You're going to help them not make emotional decisions with their finances that could cost them. You're going to help them avoid costly mistakes. And that's
That's
a
right.
big part of this. If you don't start planning for retirement until you're there, it's probably too late. So you need to get
Yes.
going as soon as possible. I mean, it's never too late to start, but the earlier the better.
It's never too early to start.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's what I always say. When's the best time to plant a tree?
That's
20
right.
years ago. 20
20 years
years
ago.
ago. What's the second best time to start a tree?
Today.
Today. Yeah, exactly. And retirement planning is the same way.
That it's the exact same way. And
Yeah.
so one of the things that we want to start looking at about 9 years out from retirement is your investment allocations. So with the assistance of your financial advisor, you need to start looking at where is the money, how is it invested, what is my risk versus reward on all that money. Now, we used to talk about the rule of 100, but if you're under 65, we're going to start talking about the rule of 120 because we're living
Oh,
longer. We've
yeah.
had better health care. We didn't live through World War II, right? Those kind of things. So we are need to start thinking about the 120 rule. So what that
Yeah, the
means
Gen
is
Xers especially need to start thinking about
the
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 120
Gen X.
rule.
That's
Yeah.
right. The chances of a Gen Xer living into their 90s is pretty good.
Yeah.
So, what that rule means is that you should have uh, a portion of your money at risk and a portion of your money in safe things, right? So,
Right.
if you're 55, you should have 65% of your money in something that has high growth potential, can take some risk. And then you should have some money that doesn't take risk, that is away from risk, right? Because risk can destroy your portfolio if we have the 2000s happen again. So we don't. Nobody wants that. Uh, but once you get close to retirement, you don't have that time to recover. You're not earning as much money because you're going to retire soon. So your 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 outlook is different. So we got to start looking at that balance of money at risk and money that's safe from market forces.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is asset allocation, or where is
That's
your
right.
money at and when is it there? Where are different chunks of your money at? And this sounds like a place where we need to be really careful, right?
That's right. I mean, it's growth versus things that are safe, and
Yeah,
so we need that growth because we're going to live to 90, but we need the safe because we're going to start spending it soon.
right. Yeah, there you go. So you got to be careful.
Yep, you got to be careful, and um, savings um, it's hard to say, but we've got to take the emotions out of how those savings are invested. You know, don't don't think about the losses. Think about, how we protected it, how the risk rewards are happening. Because I had some clients, we put them in some safe things in 2021. His name's Ted, and he had $1 million in growth stuff, and he had $1 million that he had somewhere else. And so we said, hey, this stuff is somewhere else. Let's put it in something that's a little bit more balanced. So if we have a downturn in the market, not all your money's floating away. Well, what happened to growth mutual funds in 2022? They were down 27%.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
Yeah, the
challenging,
market
right?
was down about 20% in 2022.
Yeah,
too.
the
That was a
market
bad year.
overall,
The bonds, everything was down pretty much.
everything was down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Growth funds down 27, bonds were down 12.
So if you're close
Uh,
or in retirement at that point, hopefully
yeah,
that's why you don't have 100% of your money in the market or high risk,
high
right?
risk growth funds, right.
Yeah.
You need a more balanced approach
Yes.
uh, to that. So, um,
That's good. I
and
hope the client listened to you and did it.
no,
And
they didn't.
oh, they didn't. So they lost
So
that money.
he got frustrated with returns on the balanced money because his money that was in growth was doing so well in 2021.
Yep.
And so he pulled it out and went all 100% to growth. And then he had the bigger hit because of it. So he lost probably 15% more than he would have if he'd always stayed with us
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and our strategy
Yeah.
of balanced.
Yeah, exactly. That's investing can be emotional, and people, that's why you shouldn't do it yourself or make those decisions
No.
yourself. But a financial professional like yourself and Tara at Nolan Financial, you can help take the emotion out of it
Yep.
and provide that level-headed guidance that people need. And that's why every study shows people who work with a financial professional who's a fiduciary, who's looking out for your best interests, like yourselves, does better in
Yep.
the
They
long
do
run.
better.
Yeah,
There's been
they do
studies.
better.
Yep.
Yep. Every study shows Columbia University. I know that like Transamerica, all these companies have done studies and universities, and they all say the same thing. And I think the minimum is like 3% more better, and in some cases, it's much better. Like
That's right.
yeah, like 15% that guy could have saved that year if he'd listened. So
Yeah.
that's considerable. And so you don't want to make costly mistakes. And if you try to DIY your finances, do it yourself,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things you can DIY and it'll turn out just fine. But there's certain things you don't want to DIY. Retirement planning, you're only going to retire once. I want to work with somebody who goes through this process every day with multiple people. And I'm not going to name names, but I know a guy, Chris McKinney, that does it. Right?
Yes, I do. And if you would like to reach me, you can call 719-210-4242. We can set up a complimentary consultation so we can look at your portfolio and see if you need to rebalance, to start talking about what retirement's going to look like. Try to start looking at what that plan's going to look like, figuring out how you're going to spend your money in retirement. It's so much different than spending your money while you're working, and people don't realize that it's a whole different ball game when we're talking about spending money in retirement versus spending money that you are getting every month from an employer.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, let's jump into segment 2 here, Chris.
Yeah.
You've
So
been talking about this 10-year retirement checklist. What do you want to touch on next?
yeah. So the next one is 7 is looking for money lost, right? So start thinking about, did you work for a company like 10 years ago and put money into a 401k? So maybe there's some money sitting out in a
Mm.
401k that you are not touching, you're not managing, you don't know how it's invested. Make sure that you've got any, we call them orphan 401ks because you're no longer working for the company that you have that 401k with.
And you may have forgotten all about it and
Forgotten all
lose
about it.
track of it. I did
Yeah.
that with a 401k. I freely admit, I'm ashamed to admit it, but
Oh,
it was a unique situation though, Chris, because my company that I worked for got bought out by a bigger company and we just merged. I had a
right.
401k with this independent company for 5 years. Then we merged and I worked 5 years with the other one, but they started, we were on new benefit plans when we moved over.
Oh, right.
Um, and I thought everything moved over automatically and I wasn't looking at it. And so when I left that job, a total of 10 years, I said, okay, I got my 401k. I'm going to transfer that to my new company or into an
Yeah.
IRA, some into my new 401k, into my IRA, and have it rolled directly. Did a rollover. And then, I'm going to say 2 years later, I'm like, I got something in the mail and I'm like, boy, I used to get statements from this. Oh, that's that old company. I don't, and it showed, I'm like, I better look into this. And I
Yep.
had, and then sure enough, I had quite a bit of money there. And I'm like, oh my goodness, 5 years worth of, putting money into a 401k and matches. That was nothing to
Wow.
sneeze at. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
And I almost lost it. I mean, I almost forgot about it. I forgot about it for 2 years. I didn't
Right.
think about it. Yeah.
So there's two other places to look for money. Both of them have to do with bank money, sort of.
Sure.
So go through your bank accounts. Maybe you've got some bank accounts that got set up by Wells Fargo back when they were creating tons of bank accounts for people, and so there's money sitting out in a bank account not doing anything. Make sure you get it somewhere it's going to work for you, right? So make sure
Yep.
you review your bank accounts. Make sure that all the money that you want to be where it should be where it is, right?
Right.
The other place is returned money to you. Often, say you change insurers or you change something, and they send a check out to you. Well, maybe you see it and you put it in your pile to take care of, and then it never makes it to the bank. Well, then that money shows up at the state. And so I was working with a client, her name's Ann, and we said, "Hey, let's just look." And so we looked, and she had $1,516
Whoa.
sitting
Yeah.
at the state because she had missed cashing some checks.
Yeah. I had that happen when I lived in Nashville. We had moved and it had been, I'm going to say 15 years after we moved back to Minnesota from Nashville, Tennessee. And somebody at work told me about this website where you can go
Yeah.
and put in your information and it searches the national database and the
Yep.
states. And the state of Tennessee had $289 or something, like 287 or
Yeah.
289 of my
Yeah.
money. And I thought
Right.
that was pretty good.
Right.
I couldn't believe it. Everybody at work, everybody was going around looking, and like most people said, "Oh, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. I don't think this is legit." And then somebody said, and I go, "I wonder if this is legit." And somebody had like $600, and they showed me they got it, and they showed me they got the check, and so I'm like, "Well, I'm going to do this." And sure enough, I got
Sure.
almost $300 back.
Yeah. So you should go to all the states you've ever lived in that you
Yeah,
open a bank account in and
yeah,
check, because
yes.
that's usually where it happens is you
Mine was
forget money at a bank.
yeah, and mine was related to some type of utility
Oh, yeah,
reimbursement or
utility returns.
deposit, the
Easy, yeah.
utility deposit or insurance. Yeah. And some states have utility deposits and companies, and I didn't
That's
know
right.
that. I didn't even realize I'd paid this.
And
And
if you
that's what
didn't
they
give them a
said it
forwarded
was.
address,
Yeah. No,
didn't
and
show
we
up.
had moved probably 6 times, which is why we never figured this out. So,
Right,
yeah.
sure. So hey, the next thing I want to talk about is your health. So now's a real good time to go into your primary care doctor and check on your health, see where things are going, make sure you get all the kind of required, not so fun things to do done. For women and men now, everybody gets to go see the guy with the lubed up finger now. So uh, get her done.
Yikes. Wow,
Uh,
that was you paint a
still
pretty picture,
little too
Chris.
graphic maybe for
Yeah.
the financial show.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Okay, look. But we need to take care of our health. So the other part about taking care of your health is starting to
Sure.
think about what you're going to do for Medicare, right? Your Medicare Part B premiums, what you're going to do for the supplements, if you're going to get Part D, Part F, those kind of things. Are you going to use a Medicare Advantage plan? Now, if you're going to retire before you hit Medicare, you got to think about a Medigap plan to get to 65. And so these are things that we need to start thinking about. These can go into your spending plan. So start thinking about how you're going to pay for those and start throwing those into what we're going to call your spending plan or retirement. and get those numbers in there so you know what you're going to have to spend.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So what's next on this checklist, Chris?
So we alluded to it. It's that spending plan. So the other part about spending plan is what do you want to do? So there's going to be your base living, right? So, maybe you still have a mortgage, your basic food cost, the basic all your insurance payments for cars, your car payments, those kind of things. Those are going to be there. So let's say those are $70,000 a year. Well, and then you want to have fun. So now let's say you're going to have another 70,000 a year. So you're going to maybe look at $140,000 a year in a spending plan in retirement. Does that sound like a lot or does that sound like little? I don't know, but that's kind of how we start to look at things when we start talking about how much you're going to spend in retirement. Because if you're going to have some fun, then you're going to spend money in retirement, and it could probably double your base amount.
Yeah.
That's kind of the going in place. So that's one of the things I spend a lot of time on. I've got some
Yeah.
clients up in Parker, and we sat down and we went through all the things they wanted to do, and then they realized that their base number was even less than half of what they want to spend in retirement
Yeah.
because of all the things they want to do. So it's a good thing to do to sit down with a financial service professional that understands your expenditures in retirement so that you
You
can
don't
put
miss
together a
out
good spending plan. You don't
on
miss out.
things like inflation and healthcare, as you mentioned.
That's right.
There are a lot of things that people don't factor in that they should, and this is basically what I like to call the crux of the biscuit, as
It's
Frank
the
Zappa
crux of
once
the biscuit. That's
Zappa,
right.
the crux of the biscuit.
But if you
I
start looking at
uh,
that, like 5 or 6 years out from retirement, then you can have a better understanding of what you're gonna have in retirement, what you
yeah.
can spend.
Yeah. Yeah. So and again, work with a financial planner, get that retirement income plan in place and work with somebody who knows all the
Right.
pitfalls to avoid and what to plan for. And there's a lot of different rules, how to factor in inflation, healthcare costs,
Exactly.
the 4% rule, the whole thing. So, okay. So
The whole thing.
what's next?
So, so part of that spending plan is going to be Social Security, and
Ah,
so
yes.
we need to start looking at how that Social Security is going to come into play. It may not be a large percent of your retirement plan,
Right.
but it is a portion, and then some of that money is not taxed. So that's kind of nice that some of your Social Security is not taxed, depending on your situation. So you need to know what's going to be taxed, what's not going to be taxed. It varies for everybody. What's going to be taxed, and then you need to start looking at, when do you want to start taking it? You can start as early as 62. You can wait as late as 70. Uh, we have a calculator that'll help you decide those things. So see your financial service professional, and they can help you figure that out. The next thing I want to talk about is high interest debt, like credit cards. Make sure you're addressing that high interest debt while you're still working. You do not want to have any high interest debt in retirement. Okay, so get rid of credit cards, get rid of it. If you have a high interest loan on a car or something like that, maybe you did a home remodel and had to take out a signature loan or something that you're paying 7 or 8% on. Make sure you get those things whittled down before you hit that retirement date.
Yeah.
So now it's going to be difficult to predict what your health is going to be like in retirement, but 70% of everybody is going to need what we call long-term care, right? So that's like a nursing home or maybe in-home care. And so long-term care insurance plans are really costly. One of the things that we've talked to a lot of our clients about and they have taken advantage of is the hybrid life insurance plans that you can take money out of those uh, insurance plans to pay for long-term care. If you don't end up using that money, then that money can go to your heirs. If you use a long-term care insurance, it works like car insurance, it just goes away. So
Yeah.
that's what we talk to our clients about.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's all these elements are such an important part of retirement planning. And I've seen the long term care thing just wipe out people's retirement and retirement plans because they don't plan for it. They assume they're not going to need it. And
Yep.
70% of all people who reach age 65 are going to need long-term care, as the one study showed. So, and there are different numbers. I've heard everywhere from 60% to 80. But I think that number is increasing, how many people end up needing long-term care.
Right.
So we are living longer and longer. And actually, the good news is, Chris, we're living longer.
We
The
are.
bad news is
We're living
we're
longer.
living longer. So that which leads to more long-term care needed because eventually
Right.
the body breaks down, but we're still alive.
The
So
body or the brain, right? So
yeah,
those are
the body
the
or the
2
brain.
things.
Yeah.
If the body's breaking down, that's one cost. If the brain's
Mhm.
breaking down, then you can add about 30% to that cost,
Yeah. Yeah. My
and
my
help.
mom is in late stage Parkinson's with the Lewy bodies. And so her
Oh,
monthly
yeah.
cost for full-time skilled nursing care is
Oh,
$11,000 a month.
Lewy bodies, that's what I learned that, Robin Williams had.
Yep.
Yeah. It
Yep.
wasn't actually it's not actually Parkinson, I guess. It's a form of Parkinson's. Is that right?
It goes alongside. Parkinson's is very complicated. I won't get into it, but
Yeah.
it affects everybody differently.
Sure.
But there are some common symptoms. But Lewy bodies is a form of dementia that can often accompany forms of Parkinson's. It goes hand in hand with
Right.
certain forms of Parkinson's. Or I don't know the technical medical. I mean, they've done a lot of research. I mean, Michael J. Fox alone has raised billions or hundreds of millions, if not billions of
Oh, right.
dollars for that research. And so they know more than ever, but they still don't know enough, you know, it's, and the only reason they know this much rather than this much rather than this much is, one person, Michael J. Fox, raising awareness. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Anyway. Yeah. So, okay. We have a couple of minutes here. We only have
So
about
so there
2 minutes left.
The last 2 things I wanna talk about is once you start getting, pretty close to retirement, you wanna start thinking about annuity. So an annuity can provide a safe money account for your funds, so it can balance your funds when your growth funds are down. So say we had like the early 2000s, we had 3 years of a declining market in the early 2000s, and so if you can not spend your capital during a downward market, you spend from a safe money account, you can extend your retirement dollars many years. So I'm saying this very slowly because it's very important to have an account that is not tied to the market
Yeah.
in
There you
retirement.
go. That's
Something.
huge.
Um, So, and the other part is start thinking about taxes, and so start thinking about converting your traditional 401k into an IRA, right? Well, and then maybe you start thinking about converting some of that personal IRA into a Roth IRA. And so this can save you a lot of money in taxes. It can help you plan taxes so that you have a better tax outcome.
There you go. All right. Well, great show today, Chris. We're out of time. Really quick, give that phone number again.
So you can reach us at 719-210-4242. Visit us at our website, nolanfinancialpartners.com. That phone number is 719-210-4242.
All right. Thanks for tuning in or viewing. That does it for today's episode of Nolan Financial Radio with our host, Chris McKinney.
Join us again next week for another show. Talk to you soon.